We all know there are a million different ways to make a living, but on this show, we are curious about those businesses that you might not know about. We're going to take a deep dive every week and talk to a successful person in their field to learn about how they got their start and how they continue to make it in their space. Join me and learn more about the business of.
Thank you for joining us back on The Business Of, and today we're talking to Shraddha Jani, MD, about her business, Shraddha Jani, MD, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about what she does. So thanks for being here. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So you're a doctor.
Yes.
And can you tell us what your specialty is?
Yes. So I am board certified in psychiatry, general psychiatry. And I specialize in adult general psychiatry, and I also do forensic work.
So you have obviously gone to school for that.
Yes.
What made you decide to become a psychiatrist?
Oh, there's a long version and a short version, and I'll go somewhere in the middle.
All right, great.
So my father was a doctor. He was a surgeon and had a private practice, loved his job. And I loved science, and in the back of my head, I always thought it would be great to become a doctor, just like my dad. He seemed to really like his job and get a lot of satisfaction out of it. He was also his own boss. And those two things really were appealing to me, the fact that I could just use this knowledge base and apply it to my work and also be autonomous. So I did pre-med in undergrad, and then I went to medical school for 4 years. And in fact, I did 3 years of surgical residency after medical school.
Wow.
With the thought that I was going to be a surgeon. Fast forward to the third year, it was a 6-year program. I became a little disillusioned with the way things worked in hospital systems. And they had changed quite a bit from when my dad was practicing. You have to answer a lot to what the health insurance company will agree to pay for, what the hospital administration wants. There's a lot of people telling you how to practice medicine when you're the one who went to school for it. And while there's definitely need for that, because we have to be responsible economically, it's just not what I wanted out of it. So I always liked psychiatry in medical school. I actually almost applied and had a letter of recommendation written by the chair of psychiatry for me. And then I switched to surgery last minute. So after 3 years of surgery, I decided to switch fields entirely. And I called the chairman who wrote me the letter initially and said, I'm interested in psychiatry. I'm leaving surgery. And he actually knew the chairman of the surgery department. He's like, oh, they're so sad to lose you, but what can I do? We actually have a spot. Do you want to join us? And within 3 months, I went from a surgery resident to a psychiatry resident.
And does that mean you have to start all over with your residency?
Yeah.
So those 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did 7 years of residency to become a psychiatrist. I mean, that's virtually unheard of. Even if you're super specialized and do training after your residency, no one does 7 years. But, I'm a better doctor for it.
Yeah.
I'm more well-rounded. I have, this ability to see things clinically from a medical perspective and the psychological perspective in a way that I think if I didn't have those 3 years of surgery, I just wouldn't have that well-roundedness. So, and people say psychiatry and surgery are both invasive, just in very different ways.
Huh. Okay, that makes sense. It's just, but I've never heard of that before. But that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Very cool. So you decided to become a psychiatrist, switched your specialty.
Yeah.
And then how did you did you go into private practice after you were finished with your residency?
Yeah, so I did 4 years of residency, and I decided I wanted to start my own practice. People get psychiatrists and psychologists confused a lot. So psychiatrists are mental health professionals that have gone to medical school, so they can prescribe medication, and they can also do therapy. And psychologists specialize in therapy, and there's all kinds of therapy out there. So that's the main difference. And what I see a lot happening is residency programs in psychiatry are really putting an emphasis on medicines, and because there's a lot out there now in terms like after Prozac in the 80s, I mean, there's just a boom in psychotropic medications. So there's so much to learn that I think the field, we started to lose touch with the roots of therapy and Freud and all those, sort of grandfathers of our field who were actually physicians who started this. So I wanted to open a private practice because I wanted to not only do medication management, but I did also want to do therapy. And the reality is if you don't work for yourself and you work for a hospital system or try to bill insurance, they're going to say, well, I can pay a psychologist less to do therapy, so I'm only going to pay you as a physician to just manage the medications, and that's it. So it just allowed me the freedom to really do what I love, which is both therapy and medication management.
And so how did you manifest your business? Were you just a one-person office at that point doing everything, or did you have somebody to help you with like your books and manage your schedule?
Initially it was just me. It definitely has evolved. I've been in practice for over 6 years now. And initially I was my secretary, my accountant, my IT guy.
How did that work?
My office supply manager. It's exhausting, and I mean, I didn't have a child yet, so I mean, I could do all those things, and I've really learned a lot about scaling. It's just me. It's still just me, but I've become a lot more efficient. I've hired a virtual administrator who works with other psychiatrists, so she kind of gets what I need from her. If there's a patient who's calling, she knows the right questions to ask. If they need a refill on a medication, she'll call the pharmacy and do that. And it's really been a lifesaver and so worth it.
Yeah.
The other thing I did was I use QuickBooks for my accounting, but I also subscribe to this online platform meant for mental health professionals. Everything's streamlined through it. You can keep your notes privately through that. It's HIPAA compliant, which is really important when you do what I do.
Yeah.
You can message your patients confidentially through that platform. They can, see when their next appointment is. They can log on to their appointment because now it's all video.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And then they can even pay their bills. They can print a bill for their insurance claims. It's really streamlined my practice quite a bit, and I was able to increase volume as a result.
Nice.
Yeah.
Has moving to video consults or video sessions, has that changed the business at all?
Yes. You just lose a lot of the personal connection, in my opinion, when you are over video. So in that way, it has changed. I still think that a lot of my established patients whom I've met in the office, we still have that rapport through the video, so it's not so hard. When it's a new patient, it's hard to sort of get that connection. So that's a con of it, but a pro of it is a lot of people are showing up for their appointments. I mean, you kind of don't have an excuse to not log on to your video appointment and wherever you are, from your bed or from your office with a white noise machine on. So there's been pros too, because I think people have really showed up more, and making an effort is a lot easier.
And have you found that your business has also grown with the change and the move to all video, because people are not only able to show up for their appointments that they already had, but are you able to have your calendar be a little bit more full because you can have patients wherever?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm no longer constricted to when I have my office space available. As I mentioned, I do forensic work too. So I really subletted my office like 1 or 2 days a week. Now, from working from home, I can see a patient on a Friday if I don't have the office space because I'm working from home. So I'm not restricted by that. I think the increase in patients reaching out, though, is coinciding with the pandemic and all the stress that has caused. So in a way, it's good that I'm more accessible because of the video platform, but more people need me. So, it is what it is.
Yeah. And can you tell me a little bit more about forensic psychology? What is that? Because I think a lot of people understand what forensics is and they know what psychiatry is, but what is the, when those come together, what does that mean?
That's a good question. And most people will say this, forensic psychiatry is an intersection between the law and psychiatry. So, for instance, what I do with the court system is if there's a question of whether someone is capable of even going to their hearing to plead guilty or not guilty because they have some underlying mental illness or they are just behaving erratically, they don't, the judge and the lawyer don't know what's going on with them. They're not qualified to really comment on them. So that's when we come in. We're contracted by the city of Philadelphia, and I have 2 other partners with this, to do these kinds of evaluations to determine if this defendant actually understands the legal situation before him or her. And that's an important thing to do because everyone has a right to a fair trial in this country. It's not fair if you don't have the mental capacity to understand it.
Yeah, it's a really important aspect of the legal system that a lot of people don't, you might see in a TV show or something like that, and then it's very...
dramatic and glamorized.
Thank you. Yes, that was the word I was looking for.
It's not like that, but it is interesting.
Your real life isn't like SVU.
No, but it's not very dull either. So,
and as you were building your business, how were there people who helped you support you, or did you have some mentors where you were able to look to? I know your dad seems like he was an inspiration there, but were there people along the way who helped you figure out your business model and help you work through some of the kinks that you came along the way?
Yeah, so it's interesting. No one tells you how to open a business or teaches you how to open a business in medical school. No. In fact, most doctors would say they only learn how to become a doctor in medical school, and there's a lot of these real life situations that we sometimes are just unprepared for unless we seek out that guidance ourselves. So I have my husband to thank quite a bit for just knowing where to start. The first thing I did was get an office space because without an address, I didn't have anywhere to apply my business to. So then I got a lawyer who incorporated my business. I got a tax ID number, I got a bank account, and then I had a freelance graphic designer design some business cards and logos for me. I marketed myself on Psychology Today. I reached out to people. And I think part of it is I have a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit in me, but I definitely needed a little hand-holding in the beginning. And my husband, who's not in healthcare, not a doctor at all, just sort of had that practical mindset of, okay, this is what you need to do. Let me connect you with an attorney to help you start this process. And that was great because I've actually mentored quite a few other psychiatrists who want to start their private practice, and they'll call me up and they'll say, you did this, can you tell me how you did this? And unofficially I've mentored them, and then I was even asked to speak at my residency program to the third-year residents. It's a 4-year program, so they're graduating in a year, about how, nuts and bolts and how to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great honor.
It was great, and they had really good questions, and I want to do it again. I hope I get asked back again. That was just this past year.
Wow.
Via Zoom.
Right. Yeah. Always via Zoom these days.
Always via Zoom, yes. But another thing I wanted to add is, in addition to the nuts and bolts of opening the practice, is the actual what I do to take care of people. And in the psychiatric community, we have something called supervision. And it's essentially running cases by other professionals in a setting where we protect the privacy of the patient. But we can talk about cases and discuss how to best approach them and whether we're not looking at it in a certain way that get a fresh perspective on it. And this happens in surgical conferences. They'll meet in the conference room and talk about a case that's really difficult and show slides of x-rays and but we do it in our own way where we discuss a patient and the kind of work we're doing with them and whether we can approach it in a different way.
Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was part of psychiatry. Like that seems like a very smart thing to do because then you do get different perspectives or people who may have been through it already. So how did you get that sort of community together? Is it something where they were people you went to residency with, or?
Yeah, I mean, you find each other.
Okay.
It's interesting because there are a few people that are they're my touchstones. I trained with them and under them during residency. They're my mentors. Or I trained side by side with them, and I'll call them up, and they're my peers, and I say, look, can I run this by you? I don't know what to do right now. But then I befriended a psychologist who, her kid and my kid were born on the same day, and we met in a kids group. And found out she went to the same college I did. Now she's a PhD and she has a practice. And we have supervision with each other, actually, and it's really helpful. And I don't talk about medicines with her because she doesn't have that background, but we talk about the therapy cases together.
Wow,
yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah,
you get that really different perspective.
Yeah.
So where would you say you are in the life cycle of your business? You've been in practice for about 6 years. Are you still growing? Are you kind of at a good place where you're, you feel great where you're at, or like, where do you feel like the business is at?
I would say I'm growing still. Initially, when I opened my private practice, I thought I was only going to do general psychiatry, not forensics, 5 days a week, 40 plus hours a week. I took on forensic work to supplement my income, essentially, while I was growing this practice. You can't go from one patient to 40 in a week. You can't. It takes time.
Yeah.
But I realized very, shortly after doing that I liked the variety, and I liked doing both things and not pigeonholing myself in one kind of psychiatry. So I'm still growing in the sense that I'm always looking for a way to scale and streamline my business, work my office hours more efficiently, and I'm always learning, obviously, because we have continuing medical education and things like that. But I may evolve even more in ways that I don't know. I do forensic work for the government now on the defense side, but I did take on a private case for the plaintiff side in like a civil case, not criminal. And that's private forensic work, and that appeals to me too. Maybe with more experience down the line, I might branch into that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. What has been one risk that you've taken that hasn't quite taken off the way you thought it was going to?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I think what I would say is I reached out a lot to former surgical colleagues of mine, giving them my card, saying, look, I'm a psychiatrist now. I opened my business. I would go to their offices, show up and bring coffee or something. And they're just so busy. They're so busy. They don't even have time to do that. And they're not really a strong referral base for me. It's a lot of the nurses in the office or the social workers who end up really talking to the patients and getting the social side of things. And if they feel a need to refer to me, they will. So that was one thing that I tried in the beginning, and then I realized it was a lot of effort and not really panning out.
So have you pivoted to talking more to the nurses and social workers and having them be your
there are
source?
some offices where they know who I am and they refer to me, and then even psychologists who they think their clients need medication or at least should be evaluated for medication, they will refer to me. And then I also advertise on a website called Psychology Today, which if you type in therapist or psychiatrist and any city, the first website that will come up will be Psychology Today, and they list your profile and provide a link to your website. So that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are finding people online. That's how you do it. So
I mean, we find restaurants online, you find doctors online.
I found how to get here online today. So I don't know what I would do. I would have gotten lost.
Right. I mean, nobody uses paper maps anymore. Why would you?
What's that?
Exactly. And what is one thing that has surprised you that was either easier than you thought it was going to be, or, was a boon that you didn't think you thought it was going to be harder, but it really was an easier part for you to do?
Oh, that's a good question too. I think getting patients, actually. I mean, I think because of the fact that they find you online, and I have a website that makes it pretty easy to click on a form and fill it out so I can have information about you to contact you, and I do a free phone consultation before I meet anybody. And that's one of the important aspects of what I do is I qualify people to make sure they understand what this entails. So you tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're looking for, and then let me tell you about how I run my practice and what my expertise is. And if they fit, great. If they don't fit, we won't take it personally, but maybe I'm not the right person for you, and let's help you find the right person. So
then would you refer them on to somebody else, or would you just say,
I have a list.
You have a list.
I do. I have a list of other professionals who I trust, who might be better fit for whatever reason. And I provide that list, and they can choose from that list. It's not like this one person's your person, and I know.
Right.
It's up to the patient to really call and find who they connect with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially during the therapy side,
Absolutely.
is having the right relationship with somebody is really important. I think for
Yeah.
both sides.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
It's actually one of the biggest predictors of good positive outcome is the rapport you have with your therapist, more than anything else.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No.
Okay.
Just one more thing was a mistake or
yeah.
a thing that I realized early on
Yeah.
in this pre-qualifying phase when
Yeah.
I had just gotten out of residency and I was really wet behind the ears. I had an instance where there was a patient who was clear, like now I look back, he was clearly med seeking, like he wanted a prescription for a narcotic, like a Xanax or something, and I thought it was a little funny the way he presented, and I said, okay, I'll see you in the office. Saw the office. I didn't prescribe anything right away because I still felt like he would benefit from therapy. Mm-hmm. He agreed, and then called me right after the appointment, like I really need something for my nerves, and it was a red flag for me. Like you're not really motivated for this. You want medication and that's it. And that's the kind of stuff you just learn on the ground as much as I can teach you. But when you're fresh out of residency, you just really have to learn from that mistake and learn to trust your gut when you feel like something's off or there's a red flag.
So what is your definition of success? I know everybody kind of has a different definition, especially being a business owner. What is your definition?
Well, so in order to answer that, I really have to just maybe get in touch with my identity in general. And I am a professional, I'm a physician, I'm a psychiatrist, but I'm also a mom and a wife. And I think my definition of success is to be content in all of those areas that are part of my identity. So as much as I am ambitious, and I love what I do and I work really hard, if I didn't have a work-life balance, I think it wouldn't mean anything. And I actually wouldn't be good at what I do if I didn't have that balance. I have to model to people that I take care of myself in order to teach them to take care of themselves. And it's really hypocritical when you see these doctors killing themselves and they don't even get annual checkups or mammograms or whatever, but they're telling their patients to. And I really think that's my idea of success. And I would like to see that spread throughout the medical community a little bit more, this wellness.
And do you feel like you have that good balance? Like if that's your definition of success, do you feel like you have achieved that, or are you always continuously working on it?
It's always a struggle.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always working on saying no to things. Really, it's
good for you.
I'm still learning, but that was part of the motivation to open my own gig, is that I could have some control over that and go back part-time when my son was really young, then do full-time and be where I am now. And it's fluid and I can change it, and I'm my own boss, but I also have to give myself days off too. So it's an exciting thing. It's awesome. Very adult.
It does feel very adult.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was really interesting to learn all about your business, about private practice and psychiatry, forensic psychiatry. I think it's a really interesting field. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It was an honor to be here.